I can't believe I'm actually making a video on this right now on the fly, but I genuinely need to get this off my chest because I am seeing it way more frequently. Sword is considered one of the easiest characters to pick up in fighting, which is why a lot of new players gravitate towards him so early on. After all, he is mostly considered one of the easier characters to play, and there is a good reason why, as he is a jack of all trades, the sort of fighter that could do many things. Outside the fact that he has a pretty high skill ceiling, all things considered, he is just an extremely accessible character. However, when people start off with Sword, they start to develop habits, and there is almost one bad habit that is universal to these new Sword players that I need to talk about because it is genuinely one of the worst things a Sword can do, and that's the combo of E plus Q. Specifically the unempowered versions. The Sword EQ combo is exactly that, using Sword's E into Q in either a quick succession, or using Q right after the distance of E. This does not apply to using E and using Q like a few seconds later, as that is a completely different story for what this is. Let's cut to the chase as to why this is bad in a very quick manner. For starters, its damage is not worth it whatsoever. The maximum damage you could do with an EQ combo is 60 damage. This might not seem too bad until you realize you can get even more damage by just using E and then 2 M1s. And up close, you can get more damage with very simple combos like 2 M1s with any move whatsoever, and all without wasting these abilities just for more damage. This is also assuming you even hit the E to begin with, by the way, since all you hit is the Q, which just does 30 damage. And there's no real character that these combos don't work on. The only real character that could probably avoid these better combos are Slingshot, and even then, Slingshot is arguably Sword's worst matchup either way, so why even bother going for that? And the lower damage could also apply to just chaining attacks together. Q is often a tool that could disorient the enemy and allow you to have the advantage in a fight. However, using a combo that has a Q in the middle of it can mess your damage potential up unless it's the last move you're using. And in this case, trying to get some sort of follow-up after an EQ is incredibly awkward and doesn't really feel good unless you actively miss the E hitbox. You could then say that EQ can be viable for finishing off low health enemies. This would be true, but again, Sword just has better options with dealing with low health enemies like M2, or having his team do it for him instead of wasting your 2 main abilities just to close out a kill. However, the other reason is much worse, and that's the fact you wasted your mobility skills. One of the key things about Sword is using your mobility skills smart to engage, disengage, and whatnot on maps. Q is less of a mobility tool, but it can help disorient the enemy and get onto higher ground. By wasting your E and Q for one below average combo, you tank your entire mobility for a few seconds and you really get no good follow-ups on the enemy. This can also even lead to your death by going for it, as against some characters like Rocket, Hyper Laser, and Banhammer, you become fodder to them and can't really do anything about it. Whereas if you still have your E and Q, you can simply reposition away from them or just approach them with a much different combo that doesn't leave you wide open to hits. There is practically no real situation where EQ could be a better thing to use unless we are talking about extremely niche scenarios, which I have no clue why you'd even run into some of these situations, so I'm not even going to name them. It's that situational. Honestly, there is really nothing to talk about when it comes to this combo because what is there to talk about? It is probably the most well-known noob trap combo, as I like to call it, as you can hop in an open server and chances are that the Sword will definitely go for an EQ and get virtually nothing off of it. I already just listed the 2 main components holding this combo back, and that's about it. Overall, don't EQ unless you really like making people angry at you for incompetence. That's all I have to say, and thank you for tuning in.